Hello again, everybody. This next speech has a foreword by Clay Judson, so I'd like to read that first. Clay Judson introduces General Robert E. Wood. We are at a crisis in our international relations. On the decisions now made by the people of this country and their leaders may depend our national welfare for generations to come. At earlier meetings you have had presented to you dramatically, brilliantly, emotionally, the view of those who believe that the ideal of American life now demands a full participation in the war between England and Germany, and a willingness to take all the risk of war which that involves. Now there is another view, equally patriotic, equally above question from the standpoint of ideals, but diametrically opposed in its spiritual and its practical approach to the problem. This view sees America's destiny as the preservation of peace for its 135 million people, the abstinence on any account and no matter how emotional the appeal from Europe or Asiatic wars, the maintenance of the process of democracy and of civilization. Those of you who hold this view are certain that we cannot enforce democracy on the rest of the world by force and arms. They believe war will be ruinous to everything we cherish most, and they believe we can avoid war and should make every effort to do so. This is the view of the man who addresses you today. He was born 61 years ago in the state of Missouri. 40 years ago, he graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point. His first military service was in the Philippine insurrection. As chief quartermaster at Panama during the days of the canal construction under General Goethals, he was charged with duty of acquiring food, clothing, and supplies for the 40,000 employees and officials in the Canal Zone. During the World War, he had a major responsibility for supplying our entire military establishment. After the war, in civil life, his marked abilities gave him immediate recognition in the commercial world, where he served for 10 years as president of Sears, Roebuck and Company and is now the chairman of its board of directors. For his outstanding services during the World War, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal. He is also a commander of the British Order of St. Michael and St. George. He is a Knight of the First French Legion of Honor. At present, he is the acting chairman of the American First Committee. I am honored in presenting to you General Robert E. Wood, who will speak on our foreign policy. Our foreign policy. General Wood's speech of General E. Woods, acting chairman, America First Committee, delivered before the Council on Foreign Relations Friday, October the 4th, 1940. I hesitated to accept the invitation of my friends, Dr. Lichtenstein and Mr. Utley, to address this gathering for two reasons. First, because I do not feel on par as a speaker with the most very eminent persons who have addressed these gatherings. Second, because my views are opposed to those of a probable majority of my listeners, and I may add, opposed to those of some of my dearest friends and relatives. I have a brother-in-law on the William Allen White Committee. But it is one of the beauties of a democracy that in time of peace, at least, men are free to express their opinions, and honest men respect opposing opinions if those opinions are sincere and free of ulterior motive. For now is the time for all honest men to express their convictions. The hour of decision. This country is on the eve of a momentous decision. The results of these decisions may be so far-reaching that they may have an effect, for good or bad, on the life of this country for at least a generation. I am at the stage of life when I do not care as to the effect on myself or my generation, I do greatly care what the effects will be on my children and grandchildren and their generation. There are two schools of thought in this country on the subject of our foreign policy. They may be termed interventionalist, and isolationist. These terms are not exactly descriptive. Most isolationists are only isolationist as to Europe and Asia, but not isolationist as to the balance of North America and South America. I accept from my discussing those who have ulterior motives, anything except for the welfare of our country. That would include the communists who really desire to destroy our government, the Nazis, and the members of the Bund who put the interest of Germany above those of this country. Well, now we've got another country that puts its everything before our need. And we, just like Pavlov's dog, you ring a little bell, the dog starts to salivatate because it thinks it's getting food. That's what we are. We salivatate when we're getting a little piece of news. Think about it, people. Different times, different names of people, but still the same thing. Just look at it. It's like a framework done for a house to be built upon. All right, our common ground. These schools of thought are in violent opposition, but there are certain points of agreement among all classes, except perhaps what we may be called the lunatic fringe of our population. These points of agreement are, first, the necessity for our strong defense, a strengthening of us on this subject. The only difference are on differences of detail. It is obvious that the richest nation in the world, in a world of force, must make itself impregnable. Second, the belief that no foreign nation must obtain possession of any part of the two Americas, and that the United States must be prepared to defend the North American continent, at least that portion of the South American continent as far as the equator. There is some difference of opinion as to whether military and naval protection should go as far as Cape Horn. Third, access to our great industrial plant by Great Britain within the limits of the neutrality law. That is, unlimited right of purchase by Great Britain of planes, tanks, munitions of war, raw materials from private manufacturers, provided she can pay for them and provided her own transport. And this, I may add, is a very great aid. Without this aid now being given, England could not capacity. Munitions and plane plants are insufficient for the long major war. Without the production facilities of the United States, she would be crushed. Theoretically, Germany is entitled to the same privilege. Actually, on account of the British blockade, she cannot use our factories. But she has no right to complain. I believe the overwhelming majority of the citizens are in accord with these three principles. I know I am. So when's this part? And we'll start another one.